Hi everyone, my name is Anne. Thanks for tuning into Art on the Creek today. We're here in my home studio in Parker, Colorado, and today it's Halloween. Ooh. If you follow the channel or you are one of my channel members, first of all, thank you so much. I just wanted to also express my gratitude for all of your well wishes. Those of you who follow or are a channel member probably know that I am getting over this cold. It threw me for a loop. I spent a week on the couch, but I was productive. I made a sweater. This is the first time I've knit my own sweater, and I'm really happy with it. If you are a knitter and you are interested in this pattern, I will put a link at the bottom because it is a free pattern, and I used a different yarn. I'll link to that as well, just in case you're interested. And yeah, it's just a fun, cozy activity, and maybe if you have a cold, knitting will make you feel better. I did not have the brain power to do watercolor, but today I do, and it's Halloween, so trick or treat, let's make a sweet little pumpkin for today, shall we? Here we go. Hello again. Well, we're going to have so much fun today. So I have received these things from Meeden to share with you guys. Thank you, Meeden. Watercolor paper, acid-free, 100% cotton. This is a 10 by 7 block, and I really like it because you can divide it into two 5 by 7s if you like, and you can also use the backs of all of these after you take it out of the block. Here's some fun ink pens too that I've got, and I will put links to everything in the description just in case you're interested. But this paper, I'm really excited to open it because I really enjoy using it with all kinds of paints. But Meeden was kind enough to send me this set here, which is actually very easy to open. I'm just dealing with some old hands. It's a set of 48 half pan watercolors, and I really think it's kind of unique because you get the shimmers in there, you get some glimmery paints, you have some neon paints, lots of reds, lots of greens. So I was thinking that this would be nice with all the yellows and everything that are in there to make a nice Halloween painting. This set also has some nice pastels in it too. So if you're interested in having a quick and easy set to work with on your journal, this set might be a good one for you to try. Now, it's a really nicely equipped set. It comes with this little sponge to rinse your brush, a nice white eraser, although the eraser does leave crumbs, and I will show you that. The brush is very nice. I really like it. It's about a size 7 or 8. It's a man-made filament, wooden handle, and it really is comfortable to use, and it has a beautiful point. I've used it quite a while on a lot of paintings now, and I'm very happy with it. And it comes with a pencil, and also I think there was a pencil sharpener in there, but I have since put that in my desk drawer. So I think it was a metal pencil sharpener. Don't quote me on that, but something tells me there was a pencil sharpener. Anyway, let's open up this block. Now, when you buy a block of watercolor paper, it's going to be typically sealed in plastic, and that's to protect all the pages. You open up the top page, and you'll see, no, you don't have pink watercolor paper, but you do have a facing page or a cover sheet that really keeps that top page nice and clean for you. So this is how you open it. There's that space in there with the adhesive. Now, some put it on the bottom, some put it on one corner. They will definitely tell you usually on blocks of paper where that opening is, or you can just look around and find it. But you just stick a palette knife down in there, or any kind of narrow knife, like you could use a bone folder or a plastic picnic knife, anything like that. And then you just remove that page and you are ready to paint. I was going to put some washi tape on here, but I decided, no, let's go ahead and make this a full-size painting. And oh, hey, I want to show you one more thing. This is another thing from Meeden that I have absolutely fallen in love with. It is a 2-well ceramic water cup. I have used this thing for over a year now, and it has been my best companion. It holds an awful lot of water. I love that there are 2 wells, because what I'll tend to do is I will rinse one tone in one well and another tone in the other well, if I remember. Or I will have one that is clean and the other one I'll just use up as general rinse water, and then I'll be able to go to a clean one in case I want to do some wet on wet techniques later on in the painting. So I really, really enjoy that. Now this particular part here where I'm sketching the pumpkin, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was just kind of playing around. So I'm going to fast forward through this and kind of get to the end where I finally decided what type of pumpkin I wanted. Actually, I keep calling him a pumpkin. We're going to make a jack-o'-lantern. That's what I should call him because that's what he will be. You can see here I just changed my mind completely. I started off a little kind of stiff, I thought, and I wanted to give the triangles a little more shape and I put a little bit of curve into his mouth. So that's what I'm doing. Now you'll notice that as I'm drawing this and as we put the ink pen on, I'm really kind of leaving room for things to do later. I don't want him to be two-dimensional, but that's kind of what we're starting with here, and that is okay. I want him to have that appearance that he's a three-dimensionally carved pumpkin. So first of all, let's start with the grooves on the pumpkin, the sections that come out like this. Think of, what do I like to think of when I'm doing this? I kind of think of a bunch of hot dogs laying together actually, or maybe fingers of a glove. And you want to remember that the center one is going to curve out. It'll be wider in the middle because it is that part that's closest to us. So this will help you in a very, very simple way deal with shape and form and kind of some shading, really get an easy piece that's pretty easy to succeed. That's kind of a choppy way to say that, but if you want to paint a jack-o'-lantern today for Halloween, you'll probably be successful and it's not that hard. You won't have to set aside that much time. Boy, I was so busy on Halloween when the kids were little. I don't know about you guys, but not only did we spend a lot of time making their costumes because that was important, but then the day of Halloween, oh my gosh, they get home from school and immediately they have to eat dinner, and we would always order the jack-o'-lantern pizza from, oh my gosh, my kids, if you're watching, you'll have to put a note in the comments. Was it Papa Murphy's? I don't know, a local pizza chain had a jack-o'-lantern shaped pizza, and they would use pepperonis to make the face on it. Either that or we would make hot dogs, which is probably why I think of hot dogs when I look at a jack-o'-lantern. And then they would have to have dinner before they would go out trick-or-treating, because in Colorado, typically we get our first snow around Halloween. Now let me interrupt my story here just a little bit and I'll talk to you about this pen that I'm using. These are so fun, you guys. These are pigment liners. And I didn't participate in Inktober this year, but I did participate in a little bit of Inktober shopping because my pigment liners were kind of running out. So what I wanted to do was to get a nice set of varied widths of pigment liners. These are by Zig Kuretake, I think. I will put the link, like I said, in the description so you can check these out for yourself. This is a permanent ink, which I love because I can do the ink first and fill in the wash later. That makes it so quick, so easy, so fun. And we're going to go back over it later at the end to really emphasize these dramatic black lines on this pumpkin here. But at any rate, you can see that this one, at least I hope you can see, is real brush filament. And a lot of ink pen sets won't have that particular pen. And I really like this one for that reason. So what I'm doing is I'm just really being conscious of where my stroke starts and stops, because at the stop and start at those 2 points, your line will be narrower. And I'm intentionally exaggerating that weight of the line that I'm putting on. And this is really fun to play with and practice because it's kind of fast how it goes down. And it can be a little bit off-putting at times. But what we're going to do is go over it again and make it even more dramatic than it is. And yes, I know I didn't give him a nose. It's because he's kind of small and I didn't want to take up too much space. So I want to make sure that's completely dry before I go through and erase my pencil lines. But that's what we're doing now. Okay, so more Halloween memories here while I'm getting set up. And I will interject and interrupt myself with all the names of the colors. In fact, maybe if I'm mid-story, I'll just put those up in text on the bottom. And these colors are kind of unique to this set. They're not really named like you would find, in regular watercolors. These have fun names to them, like for instance there is an apple green and a grass green, things like that, jade green. So it's not you're not going to find like a phthalo green in here. It's they're named differently because they are aimed at a more hobby market. But you know, I have found that hobby paints can be so much fun, and these I particularly like, you guys, because they're not streaky. Many times hobby paints can be very lackluster in performance. These are nice, and they're a really good set. So I'm very pleased to say, yes, I do like these very much. Just got the paper wet. We're going to do wet on wet. Now with hot press paper, we're probably going to run into some cauliflower blooms and backruns because I put in an awful lot of water, and sure enough that happens, but I intentionally wanted to do it that way so that I can show you what happens and how we're going to overcome that at the end here. The first color that I'm going in with on that water is a lemon yellow. And lemon yellow is kind of a unique color, and this lemon yellow is true to the other professional grades as well. It tends to look neon to me. I don't know if you guys have found that as well, but when it dries, it almost has a green shift, like a yellow highlighter. So I really don't use lemon yellow that much, but it is the lightest one, and I do want to start with the lightest one. So we are just doing the entire pumpkin, except for the stem, in the lemon yellow. Now, let's go back to the trick-or-treating story. I don't know how many of you have little ones at home, but we'd make these costumes, have the dinner, and then go outside, and 9 times out of 10, including my own childhood, the costume that you make has to fit over snow boots and a parka, because we have wonderful warm Indian summers. The extended warm weather goes well into October, and then on Halloween, or about on Halloween, we often get our first snow. And that happened, in fact, yesterday, October 30th. We got our first snowflakes. Nothing stuck. When we went on our walk this morning, there was just a little bit of frost on the ground, and the streets were all dry. So trick-or-treaters should have a fine time tonight. But I remember at least one trick-or-treat where parents were driving the kids around and there was a foot of snow on the ground. So that one was rare, but we do get snow on Halloween pretty often. So the joke for a Colorado kid is make sure your costume fits over your winter coat. Now we're going in with a couple more colors. I went in with a yellow-orange, that darker yellow there. And then now this one is actually a red-orange. There is an orange in this set, but I'm going in with a red-orange. And that one right there is the yellow-orange mixed with it. I'm really just kind of letting these colors blend and merge, because now as soon as you get that the red-orange next to that lemon yellow in the eye, on the pumpkin's right eye, the one on our left, you can really see how pale that lemon yellow is. So I really want to warm it up, because not only is there a candle in there, but there's also the inside of the pumpkin. And don't worry, we will indeed be filling that in and letting it look a little more three-dimensional, because right now, remember, we're not done with all of our black lines. Right now, he looks a little two-dimensional, and that is okay. I just wanted to get some good color down. And you'll notice that my technique, if you can call it that, is to leave some space. I'm really just letting the paint play on the paper as much as it wants to. One of my favorite things about watercolor is letting the pigment mix on the page. Now, again, this is hot press paper. If you have cold press paper, you will see this paint move around a whole lot more. So in a way, if you want to be able to have just a little bit more control of your paint, maybe consider a hot press paper. Hot press is smoother than a cold press. Cold press has more texture, and the paint will flow a whole lot more on it. The paint I'm going in with now, this darker shade, is they call it burnt sienna. If you have a transparent red oxide, that would be a really lovely color to use for pumpkins, or you might be able to get away with a Viennese red or a Vienna red. A red ochre would be really nice. Just something that is a really earthy, warm red, and you can see how it really looks like rust up there. Quinacridone rust would also be a wonderful one to use at this point if you're using your own set and not this particular one. But again, in this set, it is burnt sienna, which you could use depending upon how your burnt sienna is formulated. If you have another set of paints, it might lend a little bit too brown. This one is very, very red, so it's working out just fine. And trying to keep this darker tone a little bit more towards the bottom and in or close to the creases of those little hot dog sections of the pumpkin. And then we're going with the paint on our brush here, and we're kind of putting it down A little bit heavy, but then we'll come back in with some water and create a path for that paint to flow on. And since watercolor loves to be around water, it will naturally flow and move, and those lines will just kind of naturally soften. So remember, wherever you leave a lighter point on your pumpkin, if you leave an area lighter, that will tell your viewer that that part is closer to the viewer's eye, or it is raised, or it is pronounced. Wherever you have a darker area in your painting, that will recede. So I'm just kind of thinking of a wonky shape of my pumpkin here and placing those colors down accordingly using those principles of light and dark. And now I'm just kind of filling in a little bit in the eye sockets and the mouth, just to kind of make that a little bit more warm light instead of that cool lemon yellow. And we're just kind of filling around here. And I think we might be ready to go on to the next phase. Let's see where we're headed next. Now, our carved pumpkin, our jack-o'-lantern, does have a candle inside. So he's going to glow. It's really going to be that lantern light that exudes through the pumpkin skin because it's hollow. And that is going to be really fun and visible for us on our dark and stormy night. So let's go around our pumpkin. I've kind of got a mix of yellows going here. A little bit of the yellow orange, a little bit of the lemon yellow. Sometimes I put in some of that permanent yellow, I think, and I'm just adding this warmish yellow tone all the way around the pumpkin. And here you can really see this effect of adding water to that line of pigment all the way around so that it has a place to travel. And once again, this line is probably going to stay pretty sedentary looking because we're using hot press paper. If you have cold press paper, and I'm betting most of you do, this will flow a whole lot more, and it's just so much fun to watch. This is one of my favorite things to watch with painting, is to let those paints play and mix on the page. And for that, I did pull out that wider paintbrush again. This is called a Mottler brush. It's this particular one is by Princeton. It's an Aqua Elite. Those are just some of my go-to paintbrushes. I'll put a link to those down below as well. And I just really love using it as a little chisel shape, like I'm doing now. Kind of you can make little narrow lines with it, or as an area filler to fill large areas. I really like using it flat like that to put in backgrounds. You can really leave some wonderful painterly strokes as well. Now I'm using the blue violet. Whenever you mix purple and orange or purple and yellow, you can get a tan or a very dark brown, kind of a gray tone. So this will be a fun shadow for our pumpkin. Now I'm kind of thinking in my head that this will be kind of moonlight. The light will be coming kind of from the upper right, so the shadow's coming down to our lower left. And I'm just putting that darkest portion of the shadow up against the pumpkin. I'm just going in with more of that blue violet and just kind of tapping it in along the edge. And then I thought, okay, let's go ahead and add some of this up in our sky while that area around is wet. And we'll go ahead and just let this kind of play with that yellow that's on there. We'll create a nice misty kind of a glow around the pumpkin. I'm envisioning maybe it's a dark and stormy night and you're out trick-or-treating and it's spooky. And so we need to have some fun painting this kind of ethereal glow around our pumpkin. Now I'm looking to add a darkish blue, and they have one on here that is called dark blue. I really wanted kind of an indigo. They don't have one that dark on here. They have, let's see, they've got a cerulean, a lake blue, ultramarine, a medium blue, and a dark blue. And they all kind of look really close to one another. The cerulean is a little bit lighter. The ultramarine is definitely looks quite a bit like ultramarine. But the dark blue is dark-ish, but you can see when I put it down, it almost looks like a phthalo blue. Now that's going to be okay because all we're doing is looking to add some darkness to this sky. And now I want to blend this yellow up into the sky and kind of combine these colors without mixing a green. It's okay if some greenish tone gets in there, but I don't want to mix a true green on the page right now. So I'm really liking how this looks, and you'll notice there are some puddles there. I'm not going to worry about those. Let's go ahead and give this a thorough dry, and then I will show you what happens when you leave these puddles here. I really wanted to do this intentionally. I knew this would happen with hot press paper. I know that a lot of you run into this issue, and I want you to know that it's okay. You don't have to throw your painting away if you get some back runs. Let me show you a way that this can work to fix it. or incorporate it into your painting, really, is what we're going to do. If you're new to watercolor, I don't want you to be afraid of backgrounds or cauliflower blooms. You will hear a lot of artists talk about them like they're negative. It's true, you might want to avoid them depending upon your painting, but on this one that we're working on here today, we can embrace them. So I'm just kind of mopping that background up. What a background is, it's right there on the top of the page. What it does is when the water is too much in one spot and the rest of your painting dries, that watercolor goes back up into the water and it leaves a hard line around this ridge. So it's almost like a puddle stain. And what I've decided to do is go ahead and lift that up, and now I'm filling in a little bit of the yellow all around the pumpkin and just kind of blending this very lightly so that that misty hollow of light kind of merges around with our night sky a little bit more, adding a little bit more of the dark tone to it, and then just kind of blending that right-hand side. And you can see all the ripples we have on the right-hand side too. Don't worry if this happens to your paper, it's not ruined. You can go ahead and we'll dry it, and I will show you a fix at the end where we can incorporate that into part of our atmosphere. It's really going to be kind of fun. You want to make sure your painting is completely dry at this point, because what we're going to do is go back in with our pen, and you see I'm using a very light pressure here. I've also got a reference photo off to the side, and I just looked up jack-o'-lantern on Unsplash, and I used the first one that came up. So I'll put a link to that one in the description as well, in case you also want to just get your eyes on a pumpkin. I wanted to make sure that I got the shadow lines correct, the shape of the pumpkin, because he is a three-dimensional shape, not just in outward round form, but the wall of the pumpkin has some shape too. So I wanted to make sure that I got those lines to show the wall of the pumpkin, the thickness of it. I wanted to make sure I got those correct. So for that reason, definitely I'm relying on a reference photo. And I encourage you to do the same. You know, a lot of times we can fall into a comfort zone in our art where we say, oh yeah, I'm going to draw, a leaf. I know what leaves look like. Well, for a leaf, you may, and that would be fine, but you might forget that there's a little nub on the end of the stem or something like that. I'm just using this as a random example, but for a jack-o'-lantern, I really did want to have that reference available because I cannot for the life of me figure out how all of those wonderful calligraphy and letterer artists that there are online, they always get the shadows of the letters right. They have to be looking at something, don't they? Maybe this is an innate value that I just simply don't have in my brain. I need to have those shadows and lines spelled out for me so that I can replicate them correctly. And a lot of that comes from many, many years of really drawing the shapes and shadows that I see, not what I know to be a jack-o'-lantern. So if you can wrap your brain around that, that will actually help you improve and like your artwork a whole lot better. This is kind of what they mean when they say draw what you see. Don't just draw what you think a jack-o'-lantern looks like. Really go in and look at what you're seeing. And in this case, it's this reference photo that I'll link in the description. And see where these shadows fall. And in the one in the description is not lit. So I had to use my imagination on how a lit pumpkin would look. But I think we came up with a really fun solution here. And I hope that you guys like it too. For the stem, going in with some black and a little bit of burnt umber. And I'm just kind of mixing these on the page again, using a little bit of lifting here to create some light and dark nuances on the stem. And you'll notice where I put the 3D lines in the mouth and the eyes, I went ahead and darkened the shapes that were represent the wall of the pumpkin. The thickness there. I made those just a little bit darker, kind of in between the skin tone, the skin of the pumpkin, and the brightness of the light on the inside. Now I'm just going in and tweaking this stem a little bit by adding some olive green. There's always a little bit of green in that pumpkin stem. And I think it's just about ready to dry again and get ready for some really fun final steps. If you've never tried ink and wash, you might discover it is your best friend, because if you have an unsteady hand like I do, you can clean up all kinds of sins. You can forgive all manner of sins by using an ink pen at the end to just kind of clean things up. So what I'm doing is I'm going in with a lot heavier stroke here, you can see, with these lines. I can't tell you how much I love making these big swoopy lines with this brush. It is so fun to use. This ink is so nice. It's a very dark, rich, opaque black, which I think personally is not the easiest thing in the world to find. Sometimes you'll find a black ink and it's just not black enough. Same thing with an opaque white. You really want one that is definitely very opaque. Put a big asterisk on that part because we're going to use one that's not quite too opaque at the end here. But anyway, I'm really enjoying how this feels so free, so fun, loving the ability to just swoop right around and create these big, dark, thick lines around the pumpkin. And I just think it gives it kind of that nostalgic look that is really what I was going for. As I was painting this, I had so many Halloween memories running through my head. We had a witch costume when I was a kid, and we would wear that over and over again, just about every year. It had someone in our family made a hat. It was made out of black poplin, and it stood up very, very well. There must have been a lot of interfacing in it, and it had a felt pumpkin on it, and the pumpkin face was a lot like this one actually. And I wore that so many years. I just loved being a witch because that hat I thought was so special because it was handmade. We did our fair share of buying the costumes at the drugstore though, where they would come in the box with the cellophane on the top and you could see the mask. I was Snoopy one year, and I was the Blue Fairy another year. My brother was a hobo. And oh gosh, I can't remember. Oh, but my mother, she was a dress designer, and we were all tall. So everything that we wore was handmade because they didn't have tall shops back then, really. And my mom made us a clown costume, and they were all made out of my dad's old shirts, his old coats. I have a snowsuit that was made out of my dad's old coat that I handed down to my kids. All of these nostalgic moments, these handmade holidays, that's really where my mind was when I was painting this. And as soon as I signed it, I thought, oh, I forgot to get out the white. So let's do that now. I want to make sure this is really, really dry so I don't set my hand in this ink and smudge it. And you can see this pen I'm going to use is in my hand. It's a Faber-Castell Pitt pen. I've ended up with 2 of these pens, and I can tell you just as a white marker, I don't like them that much because they're not very opaque and they tend to really pick up the watercolor, which is what I use them on. But that's okay because they deposit a lot of ink and it's going to be just perfect for our situation that we're working on here. So I've outlined that kind of wonky shape on the right. I thought this would be a good kind of a smoky cloud. And then I'm just kind of feathering the line around it, not too much because I really don't want to damage the tooth of the paper. Just getting enough ink on there and agitating it enough so that it can look soft. And now I'm going in with my finger and just kind of smoothing it out. So I put a little bit more down at the bottom, just making little stripes, and you can see what a soft little line that gives this. And it's just so easy to do. So if you have a white that you are not crazy about, you could even do this probably with a Chinese white watercolor, or a titanium white watercolor, one that's not completely opaque, or you could even probably do this with a watered down gouache. Just kind of go in and tap it around with your finger, use your brush, do whatever you want to do to get this softness created. As I was working over here on this side, I thought, oh, a pastel pencil would work really nicely with this too, because you just want it to be that soft white, like like clouds, like mist. You really don't want it to have a definite brightly formed shape. You just want it to be a soft suggestion. And for this particular purpose, this Faber-Castell Pitt pen really worked well. And once all of those little smoky clouds are blended, voila, we have a really nice pumpkin for us for Halloween. You guys, I hope you enjoyed this so much. And if your day today involves trick-or-treating, I hope everyone gets all the candy they want and is safe and warm and just has a really delightful time. Take care, everyone. Watch out for those ghosts lurking around the corner, and we will see you in November. Bye now.